Okay, what is up everybody? And in this video, we are going to be talking about virtual machines, going over a bunch of key points. This video is for people who want to get to know them and don't know much about them. This is a good starting point for you. So if you want to learn, let's go. What are virtual machines? Well, they are an emulation based on a computer system, which I spelled that wrong. They provide functionality of a regular computer, but using software instead of a physical computer to run. So I'll talk more about it as we go on, but a virtual machine is, for right now, we're just going to call it something you can install on your computer where you can run a different type of operating system. So if you're running like Windows or Mac, then you could run Linux or Fedora, Ubuntu, stuff like that. So for the verbiage, virtual machine and OS. Mainly, you hear people call them virtual machines. When we're talking about this kind of subject, that's what they're called. But the virtual machine runs the OS, or the operating system. And like I said, it can be Windows or Mac that you're running your OS. It can be Windows or Mac, but in many cases, it's like a version of Linux you're running on a virtual machine. And as I said at the start, you install a VM to run a different operating system or OS on your computer. Okay, so what are the advantages of a virtual machine? So using a virtual machine and learning and knowing how to use one can do a lot for you in general. If you use computers a lot and you do a specific task, it can just you can set one up so that your computer is just built to do stuff around whatever that task is. Like flexibility, like I was just saying. If you're a developer, let's say, there's different types of OSs for you to set up a environment just for whatever type of framework or language you use or whatever field you're in. It's very accessible. You're given a bunch of free tools and apps and games if you want to play games to make it even easier to use. So if you want to use Microsoft Word, they don't have that, for example, but they do have LibreOffice, which is the exact same thing as Microsoft Word, except it's free. It also has a PowerPoint version, the Excel, everything that Word would offer, but free. And let's say you want to host a server, then the right OS on your virtual machine could help make that way easier and take your developer skills to the next level. Okay, so let's go look at the rockier side of using a virtual machine. At first, I'll be honest with you, they can be a bit challenging, and you will have to put a little time into learning it. Like it says right here, it can be a learning curve, especially depending on how much you know about computers. It might take you a few hours to get used to and see how stuff is done. They can be less efficient because, while your computer is able to access everything, like specifically, we're installing a virtual machine that will have to access everything indirectly. So we'll have to go through our computer to access it, and it also has a high CPU usage. So it could slow your PC down, it could run slow. It might not be convenient depending on the type of computer you're using and what OS you're using and how it's set up, but there's ways around that. There's a huge community behind it. So if you do have certain issues, then you have people to go to. So silver lining is going to increase your skill set. You are going to learn a lot more, and you are going to get a better understanding of how this tool we call a computer works. You'll also be able to add these skills to your portfolio. So if you're looking to get like a developer job, something along those lines, it's always good to have this on there. It'll help the company have a little more trust in you. And if it's another thing, they can check off their box to hire you. Well, there you go. And job opportunities, hey, some companies look specifically for people who know how to run just a virtual machine in general. That's their thing. They love it. So that is our disadvantages. Now let's look at our top virtual machines. So our virtual machine is what is going to be running this separate operating system on your computer. The top ones you can install to do this are VirtualBox, Oracle VM, Hyper-V, VMware Fusion, and Parallels Desktop. I honestly prefer VirtualBox. Look into them. They all have their own pros and cons. And remember, this is how you're going to access that operating system and be able to run it on your computer. Now, for the top OSs we can run on our virtual machine, we have Ubuntu, Fedora, Solaris, FreeBSD, FreeBSD, Chrome OS, CentOS, Debian, Deepin, Oracle, and Junis OS. I personally, if you are just here learning, getting a grasp on everything, and you want to have an idea on which one to download out of all these, I'd say Ubuntu or some type of Linux platform. They're the easiest to set up normally, and they are very easy to start accessing everything and just managing, and it's easy to get your foot in the door and see what's going on. And now let's kind of wrap up this video for a little summary and get a little overview. So for beginners right here, VirtualBox is easy to use and it's a good starting point, and it's a good place to start experimenting with VMs. It doesn't give you a lot of the nitty gritty stuff, but it gives you enough to set up a virtual environment how you want. And especially if you're like intermediate, you have some options there to go a little more in depth with how that OS is set up. And your operating systems like Linux and Ubuntu, they're easy to use and install. They have plenty of tutorials, so it can be a bit daunting and like nerve wracking to set up a virtual machine on your computer, because if you don't do it right, there could be some consequences. But if you are running into an error or something's happening and you're not sure what's going on, you also have a community there behind you, and you can go to places like Reddit or a Linux or Ubuntu forum. And if you've had this issue, somebody else has too, and there's no one who hasn't had the issue you've had. There will always be somebody out there to help you solve this problem, and that is one of the great things about it. So don't forget, it'll help you get to that next level you want to be at as a developer, could help you get some jobs, and no matter what, is going to help you just move forward and use this tool we call a computer even better and more effectively than you started out.